Hello everyone and thank you for being here. My name is Stefania Zourlidou and together with Reka Gali I will present you our paper titled From Engagement Trajectories to Targeted Support. This is joint work from the Institute of Web Science and Technologies at the University of Koblenz in Germany. And in the next 15 minutes I will walk you through a practical framework that helps MOOC instructors decide not only which learners may need help, but also what kind of help to offer and when, all under the realistic limits of instructor time and capacity. So MOOCs have opened up the education to millions of people around the world, no doubt, and that is wonderful. But the data tell a more difficult story. In most MOOCs, only about 5 to 15% of registered learners finish the course or earn a certificate. The rest disengage somewhere along the way, sometimes early or sometimes later. At the same time, instructors and course teams have very limited time to support this big number of learners, right? And they simply cannot reach out personally to every learner who looks at risk. So we have a clear gap here. Many learners need support, but the instructional capacity to give that support is small. This is what we call the learning gap problem at MOOC scale, and it is what our paper tries to address. Learning analytics community has done a lot of work on prediction. We have engagement typologies, dropout prediction models, certification prediction models, and dashboards that show all of this to instructors. That is the left side of the slide that we have already. But look at the right side. Even with all of that, instructors still face three open questions every week. Which signal should actually trigger a response? What kind of support should I offer for this particular pattern? And how do I prioritize when I cannot help everyone? So the gap is not in prediction, the gap is in turning prediction into a clear, bounded, instructor readable plan of action. That is the problem our framework tries to solve. Our contribution has three parts. First, a compact set of trajectory signals, things like inactivity weeks, engagement drop-off, variability, the balance between assessment and content, and learning duration. These are simply numbers you can compute from any platform log. Second, four risk archetypes built on those signals, not statistical clusters but human readable categories: early disengagement, deadline driven cramming, assessment heavy strategy, and irregular persistence. An instructor can look at learner and say, yes, this label fits. Third, three policies tiers, universal, targeted, and escalated, selected each week under an explicit capacity budget. So the framework always respects what the instructor can actually deliver. One important risk here is I want to be transparent about that our paper is a design framework. We don't yet claim measured effects on learning outcomes. The empirical validation is something that we want to do as a next step. So about our contribution, our contribution has three parts. First, a compact set of trajectory signals, things like inactivity weeks, engagement drop-off, variability, the balance between assessment and content, and learning duration. These are just simply numbers you can compute from any platform log. Second, four risk archetypes built on those signals, not statistical cluster but human readable categories such as early disengagement, deadline driven cramming, assessment heavy strategy, and irregular persistence. An instructor can look at a learner and say, yes, this label fits. Third, three policy tiers: universal, targeted, and escalated, selected each week under an explicit capacity budget. So this framework always respects what the instructor can actually deliver. And one important warning that I should state here is that this paper is a design framework. We don't yet claim measured effects on learning outcomes. The empirical validation is something that we plan to do as a next step. Here is the framework at a glance. The input is the kind of data every MOOC platform already collects. This can be weekly activities, video events, assessment events, and timestamp. No special instrumentation is needed. On the right, we have the capacity budget, P10. This is simply how many targeted interventions the course team can deliver in a given week. In the middle, three stages run sequentially. Stage 1 computes simple trajectory signals. Stage 2 maps those signals into one of four interpretable risk archetypes. And at stage 3, we select an intervention from three policy tiers while staying within the weekly budget. The output at the bottom is a weekly intervention plan, can be targeted, step care, and recalibrated as the core progresses. I will now walk through each stage briefly. Stage 1 produces 5 simple signals from the engagement traces. In activity accumulation just counts the weeks where the learner did nothing. Engagement drop-off compares recent activity to early activity. Therefore, it catches learners who started strong and then faded. Engagement variability captures unstable routines, like learners who only show up before deadlines. Assessment to content imbalance flags learners who attend quizzes without engaging with the actual content, a silo strategy. And learning duration tells us whether a learner left after 1 week or stayed engaged for many weeks. I want to highlight one thing. Every one of these signals is interpretable. An instruction can look at the number and immediately understand what behavior it describes. That is deliberate. We didn't want a black box risk score. These signals, therefore, are the input to stage 2. Takes the 5 signals and maps them into one of 4 risk archetypes. Each archetype has a clear behavioral pattern and a clear suggested first response. Early disengagement is the learner who shows high inactivity or a sharp drop-off in the first weeks. The response is a low-cost nudge, a reminder, a pacing message. Deadline-driven cramming is the learner who, with high variability and bars of activity right before deadlines, the response is a pacing scaffold or a spaced practice prompt to break the cramming pattern. Assessment-heavy strategy is the learner who keeps clicking through quizzes without engaging with the content. The response is a short concept check or adaptive review. Irregular persistence is the learner with high variability but no clear decline. They are still engaged, just inconsistently. Light monitoring is enough. One important design choice here. We use ordered rule, not statistical clusters. Why? Because rules are auditable. An instructor can read a rule, change the threshold, or override an assignment. Clusters cannot offer that. In our prior empirical work, we also showed that clustering can produce outcome flat groups that look mathematically clean but provide no actionable separation. Ordered rule avoids that trap. This is where the framework turns archetypes into actual decisions, and this is where instructional capacity enters the picture. We use 3 policy tiers layered like stepped care. P1 is universal, light, low-cost supports delivered to everyone. Basic reminders, week ahead overviews, and this cost almost nothing per learner and run automatically. P2 is budgeted targeted support. This is the archetype-specific response from the previous slide, but delivered only to the top-ranked flagged learners up to the weekly budget PT. So if the instructor can handle 30 learners this week, that's fine. Only the top 30 get a P2 message. P3 is escalation for learners who have been flagged repeatedly across several weeks. This is the highest intensity response and it is also capacity bounded. Prioritization is done with a simple transparent score, for example, combine inactivity, drop-off, and variability, rank the flagged learners, and serve the top of the list until the budget is gone. The score is readable, instructor can adjust the weights. The result of it is that support is always delivered within real-world capacity and the rationale is auditable. Framework in the public Harvard MIT person course dataset from academic year 2013. It contains 16 MOOCs from 641,000 person course records and 476,000 unique learners. Our prior analytic subset of 338,000 records comes from 5 selected courses. The most important number on these slides are the two at the bottom. In that subset, about 90% of learners had no record video interactions at all, and about 62% had no activity in the key assessed course events. Read those numbers carefully. Structural sparsity is not an edge case in MOOCs, it is the cohort. And if we try to give targeted help to everyone at risk, we would be trying to help almost everyone. This is exactly why instructors give up on personalized support. Therefore, this is the practical reason our framework is built around the capacity budget PT. We're not pretending we can intervene with hundreds of thousands of learners, right? We're just saying, given that you can help only some of them, so therefore, given your capacity, here is how to choose which ones and what to offer. How would you evaluate a framework like this in a real deployment? We propose 3 workload-aware dimensions. First, timing. Does the framework deliver early warning support? Even the light V1 universal supports earlier than a baseline where instructors react manually. Earlier is better. Second, targeted quality. Among the learners who actually receive P2 or P3 support, does their week-over-week engagement hold up or improve compared to a matched group that didn't receive that support? This is the core evidence that the targeting is doing something useful. And third, workload. Does the weekly intervention count actually stay within the budget a bit? If the framework promises bounded support, but the queue blows past the budget every week, it is not deliverable. This dimension forces honesty about feasibility. And importantly, if any of these dimensions degrade, the response should be to recalibrate threshold and rule order, not abandon the framework. The whole design is built to be tunable. Regarding the limitation, first engagement traces are imperfect proxies. We missed off platform study, peer discussion, use of external materials. Therefore, archetypes labels should start a conversation with a learner, not be treated as a diagnosis. Second, the threshold is in our rules depend on the course. A signal cutoff that makes sense for a 21-week course may not transfer to a 6-week one. Therefore, cold start courses need the instruction review. Third, and this is the most important, the framework has not yet been validated experimentally. This paper presents a design, and the next step is a control field trial. Fourth, interventions can have unintended consequences. Too much messaging produces notification fatigue. Some learners may feel stigmatized by being flanked. Stepped care is intended to mitigate this, but it does not eliminate it. Fifth, the dataset is from 2012 and 2013, and modern MOOC platforms may behave differently. Therefore, thresholds must be calibrated. And finally, the intervention rules should rely on behavioral signals only, protected or sensitive attributes like age, gender, and education. And education should never drive intervention decisions without explicit ethical justification, audit, and approval. Things to take away. One, engagement signals can be translated into a smaller readable set of risk archetypes. Instructor can read them, override them, and adjust them. They are not opaque scores. Two, a capacity budget is a first-class parameter. If we ignore instructor workload, personalization at MOOC scale is undeliverable. Naming the budget explicitly forces honest design. Three, prescriptions should remain interpretable. The whole point is that the framework can be inspected and recalibrated by instructors, by course teams, and by anyone who has to justify why a particular learner was offered a particular support. The next step, which we are going to now planning, is a control or quasi-experimental field study in one course offering, comparing stage 3 policies against an instructor-driven baseline along all 3 workload-aware dimensions: timing, targeting, quality, and intervention workload. Thank you much for your attention. I would be very happy to hear your questions, your feedback, and especially any suggestions you have on how to design a good field trial of this framework.